Thank you for joining the Magic webinars. Today is going to be part 2 of our inventory webinar series, the inventory maintenance. My name is Frank Rittersdorf, one of your AMS support representatives, and I actually have my mentor and trainer, Diane Clem, here.
Hi, everyone. And as always, it takes a talented group of people to bring these webinars to you. I'll introduce us all from left to right, and just as soon as we get us up on the screen for you. From left to right, we have Sabrina Steffen, who is our marketing coordinator, and next to her we have Mark Boatman. He's our technician. He turns the knobs behind the scenes. Mark Werber is usually with us. He won't be joining us today. And to the right, you see myself and Frank Rittersdorf, AMS support representatives.
Yes, we are on Magic version 10 and getting larger and newer. We are on 10.107, a brand new version. We have new enhancements for the IMS as well as for the CDB. Make sure you get on the newest version to ensure that your Magic is running efficiently. And like I said before, this is part 2 of our inventory series. Last month we did getting started, how we set up our inventory from scratch. And today we are working on inventory maintenance, the day-to-day workings in the inventory. And next month we're going to talk about the Internet Member Services Store, where you connect your IMS with your inventory.
Thanks, Frank. And like Frank said, today's topic is inventory maintenance. It's the second of 3 parts webinar series. We're going to review the setup of inventory. We're going to take a look at the purchase order and how it affects your numbers in your inventory, and also point of sale and inventory adjustments. We'll briefly discuss your option to reset your inventory if it's just too out of control to correct. And then we're going to show you a couple of miscellaneous reports that are most popular in our inventory module.
But before we get into the meat and potatoes of our today's presentation, let's take a moment and review what we did last month. The first step we did last month is create a charge code that is associated with each product. Then we decided to categorize them and put them in different product categories. As well as did the same thing with our vendors by creating vendor types and also filling out the vendor information under vendors. We inputted the inventory items by collecting all of the prior steps and putting them for each product in a nice centralized form called the inventory information form. We used the report to check our work. As well as we did a physical inventory and used Magic's counts sheet to double check and be able to keep track of your different numbers. And then we did a master PO and entered and verified those item counts. So we ended with the purchase order last month, and today Diane is going to take us right into the purchase order and get us started.
That's right. We're going straight to the purchase order in inventory. We're going to do a lot of work on the purchase order, but before we go there, I want us to visit the inventory item form, because everything we do today is going to affect inventory stock status. When we create a purchase order and receive goods, it's going to affect our counts. When we do our point of sale, it's going to affect our counts, and so forth. So right now we're going to open our inventory information form on our product called How to Be a Positive Thinker. And we are going to deal with just the bottom portion of this form. We've already covered the top portion last month. So I'm going to point out the date last purchased is set to 0 because we have not bought any of these yet. The date last updated is always the last day you performed your month end. When you perform month end, before you close your month, you want to make sure all of your counts are accurate, your numbers are what you expect them to be. So when you close your month, that locks down those numbers, and everything you do after that is recorded and calculated going forward. Current sales will be recorded today or updated today, as well as receipts and adjustments. Right now they're at 0, so it'll be real easy to see the result of our work. To the far right, you'll see some buttons that'll show a complete history of your sales, receipts, and adjustment. And at the very bottom, you see your total on hand. That Magic will calculate your total on hand based on your last updated value and whatever activity you've done since then.
And so it really should be the total amount that you physically have in your store.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that being said, we're going to go to the purchase order information form. We're going to go to Managers, Inventory, and Purchase Order Query Form. As we showed you last week, this query form is a list of all existing purchase orders with some brief information about them, such as the date ordered and received. Once you highlight one of those purchase orders, you see a little bit of information in the bottom portion of the form, the expected date, how it's being shipped, status of that purchase order, and so forth. Right now we're going to create a new purchase order. We'll use our keystroke combination of Control E to create the purchase order and then Control A to auto-assign a PO number. Okay, this PO number is PO 01011. The date order will default to today's date. You're going to select it defaults to open, of course, and you're going to select your billing group. In case those of you out there have satellite offices, you may have more than one billing group to select from. Select the vendor you want to buy those positive books from. I'll bet it's a really positive vendor. And Magic will default with an expected date that's about a month out from your date ordered. You have an opportunity to enter your date received in case you have the goods in front of you while you're creating your purchase order, but for now we're going to leave that at 0. Then you have a couple of areas where you can enter shipping information, payment terms, and general comments as you wish, kind of free form. And we're going to tab down to the bottom portion of the form where we're actually going to tell Magic what we're going to order. You can zoom in and select the charge code. Magic will bring up the item description, and also it will default certain information pulling from that inventory information form, because every charge code is linked to that inventory information form. We have our minimum reorder quantity. It's going to default to 50 in this case. And it gives us a unit cost if you tab past that. In this case, I guess what we're ordering is going to be free.
Because it's brand new.
Because it's brand new. Now you can enter in a unit cost if you know how much your items are going to be. And once you enter that information and tab past that field, Magic will calculate your extended amount. On the other hand, if you have a total that you know you're going to have to pay for those goods, including, I don't know, shipping or what have you, you can enter that total in there and Magic will do the reverse. It'll calculate your unit cost for you. You can handle that one of two ways. Now we're going to use F4 to enter another line item onto our purchase order. And we're going to notice again that our quantity received, our minimum quantity reorder amount is 50, and this time we have a unit cost on this item, which is $39.99.
Hey Diane, being positive is the way to be.
I cannot imagine another way. Okay, so we're going to tab off that field and then let Magic calculate our extended amount. Now, for the sake of illustration, we're going to pretend that a little bit of time has passed and we're going to receive our items. So we'll go back into this purchase order and we're going to click on the date received and enter in a date that we actually have some of these items in our hand. Now we noticed when we got our shipment we didn't quite get everything we ordered. We got, let's say, 25 of how to be a positive thinker. So we're going to make that note in our purchase order and you'll see that Magic creates a back order amount of 25 and it calculates that unit cost and the quantity received into an extended amount. And again, if you know your end total of your extended amount, you can enter that and it'll calculate for you.
Or if you get more information since you ordered it,
right,
you can still change it up to the point you
can still update it. That's right. We're going to receive all of our being positive is the way, because we don't want to get ourselves sell ourselves short on that. And go ahead and post this purchase order. And you may be wondering, how is Magic going to deal with that back order? We're going to tell you in just a minute. We do want to point out that in the invoice information section of this purchase order, on a later date when you get your invoice, once the purchase order is posted, you can click that invoice button and you can enter in information such as the invoice number and the date. Magic has calculated the total received on your purchase order. You can compare that to the total on your invoice as well, just for informational purposes, kind of handy to have. So now coming back to how Magic handles that back order, we're going to take a look at that purchase order query form. You remember our purchase order that we created for really positive books was PO 1011, and you'll notice the 00 afterward. Well, when we received only part of those goods, Magic created a subsequent PO to reflect the back order. So you've posted one and received one purchase order, that inventory info is updated, but you still have to deal with that back order. So we can look at that purchase order that Magic has automatically created for you using the same PO number, just with a -1 after it. And you can see that it picked up how to be a positive thinker and the amount that you did not receive. So you know that you're still expecting that. And you can receive that when it comes in at a later date.
And track it.
And you can track it, that's right. So wow, that's a lot of information we covered. Frank's going to help us review on that.
Actually, really quick, let's see how it affected our inventory information form.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Absolutely. Okay, so here is our inventory information form, and you can see how dealing with the purchase order and receiving the goods affects that stock status. Our date last purchased is now 10/29 to reflect our recent purchase.
Did we put that 10 on accident? Was that a human error?
Yeah, I think that was human error.
It was human error because I don't think.
Yeah, that's a future date. We really are doing some time travel here.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, so last updated is our last date we did month end, as we said earlier, and our current receipts, you can see that we've received 25 of these items, and it gives us the values. So now on hand we have 25 of these items. These buttons to the right are going to give you history of the item, and that's all of the purchase orders to do with that item that we've created, and whether they're open or
This is
posted.
the back order.
Yep, that's the back order. Very good. All right, so now we see how the inventory information form is affected by that purchase order we created, and I'm sure later on we'll see how our future date affects that as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane. Take a rest. Give your voice a rest.
I'm going to take a breath.
Okay, so let's review really quick. She talked about how we create a purchase order ID where you can do an auto create by doing Control A, or you can do an automatic, or you can do your own personal scheme and enter your own number in there. It also shows the date ordered, as well as status can be open or posted. And also when you do post the invoice, it will change it to I for invoiced. The billing group, which can be for different locations that you have, as well as we talked about entering the vendor, as well as we talked about the expected and received date. The expected date can be changed. It's something that we expected, but received date is when we actually get the product. And then we talked about in the purchase order detail, whether it be quantity ordered is what we think where we want to get, and sometimes quantity received is not always what we want. So Magic automatically creates a back-ordered purchase order form for us, which helps us keep track of what we haven't received quite as yet. We also have unit cost versus the extended amount, where you can edit the unit cost or use the amount that you have in your information, your inventory information form, as well as the extended amount. So you also can edit that depending on the taxes and the shipment, and it will actually create a specific unit cost based on that extended amount as well. And of course the invoice information for the vendor's invoice, where you can put the invoice number as well as the date you received the invoice, and also compare the total received to the invoice amount on the invoice. Now let's talk about having our inventory have our product leave our inventory. We've been talking about bringing in products for our inventory. Now let's talk about how do we have product leave in our inventory. So let's take a look at that. And that's going to be through point of sale. And how you're going to do that is click on the little cash register up at the top here in our ribbon, and that's the cash receipts posting form. So as you know, it's a little bit different than dues and MLS dues, where you bill them in advance and they come in and want to pay for it. In this case, they're going to say, I would like to have this, so you need to create an invoice. The first thing you do is select a batch and find the member that's actually right in front of you or on the phone. Okay, now from there you have to create that invoice. Now you're going to go down to the create invoice button at the bottom and go automatically into the sales invoice form. Now if you have them marked as not able to charge, they don't authorize them to charge because you don't want to have to hunt them down for the money, you will get that warning message. In this case, the Griff is going to go ahead and pay for it right now. So he's going to get 10 of our How to Be a Positive Thinker, because the DeGriff loves to be a positive thinker.
It must run in the family.
Yes. So, and so at the unit cost is $1,000.
Wow.
Big spender. Anyway, and then the extended amount is going to be $10,000. I think those books are made of gold.
They must be gold leaf, definitely.
Yes. So we're going to go ahead and hit charge twice to create the invoice. As you can see, we've created the invoice with the total amount, not only just for the product, but it's also automatically entering in the tax as well. Now, the fact that I posted the invoice will actually remove those items, those 10 items from the inventory information form. So if I go back to inventory information form, pull up our item, take a look at our status. Now we can see that that we have the 25 receipts here, and then also -10 on the sales. And that's what, so now we have on hand is 15.
Magic does the calculating for us.
Yes, exactly, at $247. And that's the cost. I also can look at sales and see which invoice number is there, associated at what date, how many were removed, and then also the batch that was used. And now if this item was a long-standing item that we've had in our inventory, I could hit view all and you could see all the different sales that's happened from the moment you put it in here. But since this is a new product, we're really not going to get anything different than what we see now. Let's review. Okay, so again, cash receipts posting form is where you can go in. It's a centralized form not only to create the invoice, but you can actually process the transaction. But you do not need to process the transaction to have the inventory lower the quantity. I'm sorry, to have the invoice lower the quantity for the inventory. Just go ahead and post the invoice on the AR, and that will remove those product items from the inventory. Now let's talk about the adjustment. Inventory adjustment. No, we're not talking about adjusting the spine like our little babies here. We're talking about adjusting the numbers to make them accurate. There's a lot of times with human error, with us humans, that things can happen, especially over time, whether the unit cost is miscalculated, numbers are off, we definitely have write-off debt, maybe something gets broken, and so forth. So let's take a look. How do we adjust that to make sure our numbers are accurate? Let's take a look in Magic. And of course, we're going to go to the inventory, managers, inventory adjustment form. So what do we see here? Right now, we're looking at a list of all the past adjustments that we have done. You're looking at the ID, kind of like the purchase order, the date that it happened, who adjusted it by, the billing group for all the people that have multiple locations, the math, the result that the math that Magic did for you, and then the status of the actual adjustment. In this case, these are all posted. Let's create one for ourselves with a Control E. Now, unlike the purchase order, you have to create your own specific ID, and you probably want to use some type of abbreviation of your name and probably the date. But whatever you like to do for your personal association. Put in the bill group. Now the adjustment date is going to default to the date, the last date the month end was performed, and again lock down those transactions. You should not be putting a date, anything prior to the date showing here, because you've already locked down all those transactions. So in this case, since we're making adjustments for May in the middle of May, I'm just going to put today's date. Okay. And now I can tab through and I actually can select the charge code for the product. And we're going to stay with 000001 because when we got the product, we had to fire the guy. He really did a bad job of counting the product, so we're going to have to add a few in here. We actually received 200. Now the unit cost you're going to get either from the invoice that you received or maybe from the prior amount, like if you zoom into the charge code. And I see here the unit cost was for the receipts was $16.50. So I can escape out of here. So I just zoomed in that charge code and took me right to the inventory information form for this product. So it was $16.50 with the extended amount of $3,300. Okay. Now, if you know the extended amount is supposed to be, let's say, $4,000, you can change that as well here, and it will adjust the unit cost for you. Okay. Now, let's say you got a discount, and you know that the unit cost should be, something else based on your numbers. then you can also enter the unit cost there as well.
So important to note on this form is everything is exactly what you have on hand, and you're needing to correct something that was an error. So you know you have actually 200 of these items. That's what you're going to put in there, what you have in your hand.
It's very important. Thank you, Diane. Really, if the only time you should be in the adjustment form is after you've done a physical count. When you've counted the quantity that you have either in your hand or right in front of you, what you physically have, that's what you enter in here. Let magic do the math. Okay? So now that we've entered the information to what we feel is accurate and what we have right in front of us, we want to hit post, and it will post our adjustment. Now let's see how that affected our numbers and the internet information form, or inventory information form. Let's take a look at 00001, and we're going down to the bottom of the stock status. So our current sales are still -10. No one's made sales over in membership or anything, or in the store. We still received 25, at least we have here, but we've had to have a current adjustment of 200, which we now have 215 at 4,216. I can take a look here at the adjustment, and the value is 4,000. That is the adjustment that we have. That future date of the PO kind of messed us up a little bit.
Do you think so? We have negative,
Oh, yeah.
negative 10, positive 25, which is 15, right?
Yeah.
Plus 200 is 215.
No, it should be 200 because we don't do the
Oh,
math.
yeah. So
Yeah.
our future date of our purchase order, yeah.
So it's really important. Again, human error. I should make the adjustment. We'll have to fix this.
Yeah.
Luckily, we don't really have a store.
Yeah.
But if something was to happen, you would definitely want to offset this. And normally, because you put 200 there. But
Right.
because we did the future date, it's actually still including the receipts because
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet, so
Yep.
it's still coming in. So it's kind of messing us up a little bit. Sorry.
But that is
So,
an
yeah.
excellent opportunity to point out how date sensitive this part of the
Yes.
form is. Information is locked down at month end, but anything you do in between, it's very date sensitive. It's kind of like a living thing. So you have to be
Exactly.
real careful with that.
And it's actually a classic situation that we've come across all the time in our
That's right.
support calls. So
now you
now you
see,
can
we
see.
do it too.
yeah, there you go. All right, let's review. Diane, let's take us through the review.
What a great time to review. Okay, we created an inventory adjustment for you. We looked at the adjustment information such as creating a unique ID, selecting our billing group or location where the adjustment is going to be made for those of you who have satellite offices, and we gave that adjustment a date. Make sure it's before you close month end that you're making that adjustment, because the whole point is you want to correct it before you lock those records down. We looked at the detail in that adjustment form, such as the quantity, the current physical count you have on hand. We're not going to try to do any math here and decide what the adjustment should be. We're simply going to tell Magic what we have on hand, so Magic can do the calculations. We're going to enter a unit cost. We can either use an average or an accurate average cost for the item. We can take that from Magic or from an outside resource such as the invoice, and Magic will calculate the extended value. And now briefly, I want to just make you aware that we have an opportunity where if your inventory is so outdated or out of line that you just feel like it's going to take way too long to fix it, we can actually reset your inventory back to 0 for you and put all of the items you have on hand back in inventory using one master PO. Keep in mind, this will wipe out all your past counts, but if they're really that incorrect to begin with and you really just can't use them, this is a great tool to do. So make sure you contact us to perform this. It's not something you can do yourself, but it is something we can help you with.
Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of the reports. And the first one we're going to look at is the Inventory Activity Report. So let's find where we find that. Managers, Inventory, Reports, and Inventory Activity Report. This is probably the most common one that you're going to use because this is the report that you should be using when right before you're processing your month end to make sure your numbers are accurate or the activity is accurate. So you can put in for one specific charge code, you can put active, all, or inactive. You can be specific on the category. For instance, we put 31 there, as well as the bill group. And then again, this is going to default to today's date. This is a snapshot of the activity that has happened since the last time you updated the inventory through the month end. So of course, you're going to take a click Create Report, and of course with the magic of the webinars, voila, there's our inventory activity report. Now let's take a quick look at what we're seeing here. On the left-hand side, you're going to see just the basic information, description, charge codes, even GL accounts. We've all seen those. This is basic information here you see on pretty much all the inventory reports. Well, let's take a look on the left and what we're looking at here. So let's take a look at being positive is the way. So the last time we updated was 4:30, and at that time we did not receive any items. The sales we received was 20 at $39.99, which gave us a negative value of $799. The receipts was 100 at $39.99 at $3,999. The adjustments we had to make were 60 at the same price, and the ending balance ended up being 140, which makes sense. You had 0, you brought in 100, you sold 20, which makes it 80, and then you add 60, which makes it 140 on the adjustment. Again, we really had to fire that person, didn't we? Because this counts, the person bringing in the counts were really off. So anyway, so now you have the total of the individual item. You also, if you look down, you'll have a total for the actual product category. And if you look down even further, you have the total for the billing group, as well as the total for the whole report. So just depending on what you want to see, these totals might be different. In this case, we went very specific and very small in our criteria. But if you're going in and you're going to, you're doing all your inventory, you want to see all the active activity for all your active inventory items, then those numbers would be different. Okay, so let's review. So reading the report, we looked at the last updated, which refers to the date of the last time the month end was performed, and locked down those transactions. We talked about sales, which is the net number of sales, whether you're returning items or the members are returning items to you, or you're selling items. That's going to be the net value for that, as well as receipts, whether maybe you had a bunch of broken items and you had to do a negative purchase order out to the vendor, and then also the ones that you're bringing in. That's going to be the net number for that. And again, your adjustments. Now remember, only the physical count for the adjustments, and it should really only be one adjustment per period per item. And like Diane had mentioned, you can do multiple line items on one adjustment form. And of course the ending balance, and you have a number of totals there for the item itself, for the category total, the bill group total, as well as total on the report. Hey Diane, why don't you take us through what we're really all trying to do the inventory for is making a profit. Take us through the gross profit. That's right.
We want the bottom line. So we're going to look at the inventory gross profit report. First, we're going to talk about reading that report, and through you go to that report, go into Managers, Inventory, Reports, and Gross Profit Margin Report. Last but certainly not least, select your GL company. If you have multiple billing groups, you can select one or all. Always run this report in cash and accrual. If for whatever reason an invoice becomes partially paid, it automatically becomes accrual, even if it's a cash basis invoice type. So make sure you select both so you don't miss anything. You can narrow your report down by invoice type, charge category, and code. In this case, we're going to leave it wide open. You can also select specific dates you want to search for your criteria within. So, magic of the webinar, we're going to go straight to that report. And here it is, the gross profit margin report. To the left, you're going to have information such as the charge code, the description, and the GL account. And to the right, then you start to get into the meat and potatoes. Quantity sold is going to be how many items were sold during the time of the date range you selected, based on your criteria. Your extended sales amount is what you actually sold the product for, and your cost amount is what you actually paid for that product. So Magic is going to calculate for you what kind of profit you made or what kind of loss you experienced in dollars, and then to the right of that in percentages. So you can see how much money you made and what kind of percentage of profit or loss you've gotten on that item. Very handy report. So let's review the inventory gross profit report. In reading the report, you can see information such as the quantity you sold within the criteria that you selected when you ran the report. You see the extended sales amount, the amount you paid for it, versus the amount you sold it for versus the amount you paid for it. And then Magic will calculate for you what kind of profit you made on it in terms of dollars or in percentages.
Almost done, folks. We know we're kind of maxing out the time limit here, but real quick, let's summarize. We talked about reviewing what we did last month and take a look at that on our website, Inventory Part 1. We talked about the purchase order, and basically Diane took us field by field and really showed us how you can use the purchase order by bringing in your product. I talked about the point of sale and how just creating and posting that invoice will remove the number out
Will affect the inventory information form.
Thank you, in a negative manner. And also the adjustments where you can actually make or let Magic do the math. You just count, let Magic do the math. As well as reset that inventory, and if you really feel like that over the years you've had enough human error there where it's really just does not even being close to accurate, give us a call. We'll help you reset it and go from there. And then also we talked about a couple of miscellaneous reports with inventory activity report to really kind of check that activity, that current activity, as well as checking out your profit and which products are making you money and which are not. Now it's time for the questions and answer section of our webinar.
Our favorite section.
So we have one referring to our mistake here, which is pretty good.
Nice.
If you do enter an incorrect date, can it be changed?
I don't believe it can be changed so much on your end. You may need to create an offsetting PO to correct your situation and then enter a new purchase order with the correct date information. And we apologize for that.
Yes. And it's similar to when you actually make a mistake when you're processing a transaction, like your transaction for a wrong item code, you would make a negative offsetting invoice. In this case, you would do the negative offsetting PO, purchase it, would remove those numbers out, the counts out from the inventory, and then doing the accurate, correct purchase order
That's right.
for the right amount.
Not a future date. We're not doing time travel.
Exactly.
Okay, so another question that comes up, which is a good question to ask, we did cover it, but on the inventory adjustment form, can you enter more than one item, or is it just one item per adjustment? You can enter as many items as you'd like on that adjustment form. The point is to do only one adjustment per month end. So you're getting ready to close your month, you want to make sure your numbers are right, you're running your reports and you have adjustments to make. You'll have one adjustment and you can enter as many charge codes as you'd like on that adjustment. And the next question we have on hand has to do with inventory and month end. Are there any reports we can compare to our inventory activity report? When you process your month end, if you use Magic, we have sales journal reports and we have a couple of different ways we can run it. Frank, can you show us that in Magic? Just quickly, just go to month end. You can run your month end journal report in detail under journal entry programs, process, journal reports. If you select inventory before you run that journal report, you can run that report detailed by account. And that is a format that you can compare to your inventory activity report.
And here's one more question that we have here. Can I use new math compared to the traditional math in the adjustment form?
Oh my gosh, the answer to that is no. Don't do math, let Magic do the math.
Yes.
New or old math, don't do it.
Okay, so if you have any other questions for us for the inventory part 2, make sure you email us at webinars@rapattoni.com. I'm going to go ahead and end that. And now it's time for the Rapattoni 411. What?
As usual, as usual, I'll let Frank do this slide first.
Yes. Hey, next month, June 26th, we are going to hit the IMS online store. This is going to be very important for you to see because it really shows you your members' experience on the IMS and how it affects your internet. So your inventory, sorry. So basically it's going to connect the inventory to the IMS.
Okay, and now, as usual, you can view past and future webinars and register for upcoming webinars by visiting our website at www.rapattoni.com. Click on Support, Magic, and Webinars and Training Videos, and you'll see our entire library, plus you should be able to see our upcoming webinar. Also, you can find additional information by going to our website and clicking on Support, Magic, and Magic Resource Articles. You can find articles related to various topics. You can search by topic that you want information on, and you can find what you need there.
Once again, thank you for joining our Magic webinar. It's a pleasure. We have a great time doing it for you. I hope to see you next month.
See you next month, everyone.